Hello. So in today's episode, I'm going to be going over higher order functions. They sound so godly, higher order, and they're very powerful. So what are higher order functions? Well, the definition of them is that they either are a function that accepts another function and returns a result, or they're a function that accepts a regular parameter and returns a function. I'm going to be going over both scenarios, and in the process, I'm going to be demonstrating some closures and currying and a lot of good stuff. So let's dive into it. So here we have an array of cool cats, right? We have Furball Einstein, we have Sherlock Holmes, we have Sir Scratch-A-Lot, and we have a few others. So let's say the first thing I want to do is filter out all the cats that are fluffy, right? You see they have an isFluffy attribute. So let's get an array of all the cats that are fluffy. So fluffy cats is equal to cool cats, right? Dot filter and so this is an example of a function, right, that you need to pass into the actual filter function, which is a higher order function. And what we want to do here is we want to make sure that all the cats are fluffy when we get them back, right? So we have cat.isFluffy, right? Cool. Long, right? Fluffy cats. Let's just see what we get. Let's see what we get. Yeah, so here we go. We have all the fluffy cats out of here. So the ones that are not fluffy are not on this list. All right, so let's continue on. So the way I like to look at it is like a higher order function, or even a higher order component in React, right? But a function, it just takes in another function and absorbs anything that it does. So I think of it like a monster in like a horror movie, just absorbing everything about what it consumes. So I don't know, this is the way my mind works. I don't know if other programming minds think like this, so I can imagine like the parentheses just gobbling it up. If this is weird, let me know in the comments. However, if you agree, let me know in the comments. I want to know if I'm not alone in the world. But going into the other example of a higher order function, the example where it takes in a parameter and then returns a function, I'm going to get into that right now. So here we go. So let's say we want to add another attribute to each element in this array, right? So each object gets another attribute. So let's create a function, add attribute to cats. We're going to take in the attribute name. So what we need to do here is to return a new cats array, right? And we also need to return a new array that is a result of the map higher order function. And we want to use a spread operator because we are going to be returning the object on each iteration through the map function. And what we want to do is, this is where we're going to use attribute name. So we're going to pass in the attribute name that we want to use, right? And what we want to do is say, so let's say if they have a collar. So cat.isFluffy. If cat.isFluffy, then they don't get a collar, right? Because they have a lot of fur and the collar will just cover it over, right? So, and if they do, if they are fluffy, then they do get a collar. So, oopsie daisy, what's wrong here? So basically map is another higher order function, right? Because what it does, it takes in another function, it gobbles it up, and then it spits out something new. So in this case, what it's spitting out, for every iteration on the array, it spits out a new object, right? The new element in the array. The object is a cat, and the cat now is going to have another attribute. So it's going to be a third attribute after we actually run this function, right? So that is another example of a higher order function that accepts another function. However, what we're going to be doing is creating two examples right here. This is an example of currying, right? And it's an example of a higher order function that spits out another function that returns another function. I don't know why I say spit out all the time, but now that I realize it, I'm making a video, I say that all the time. It's a monster and it spits it out. But anyways, so, and currying, for example, currying is when you accept a parameter and then accept another parameter and then accept another parameter. So it's curried down the line, and it's not necessarily where one function accepts a whole bunch of parameters at the same time. Sometimes this could be useful. So, and it's always good to know how to do it. So this is great over here. So const, let's get, what we do is add collar to cats, and what we're going to do is we're going to call this function add attribute to cats, and we're going to say has collar, right? We're going to say something like that. Whoopsie. Yeah, you know, I turned off all these AI tools, and it looks like oh man, I'm going a little backwards there. Usually it's like boom, boom, boom. Going back to that, in my previous episode where I was debugging a bug in Cursor, I had a friend of mine tell me that he said, you know, before AI, I would code for 5 hours and debug for 5 minutes. Now that I use AI, I code for 5 minutes and debug for 5 hours. It has its pros and cons. So, all right, so what we have here, so let's list an example. So this add attribute to cats has collar, so we're passing in has cats, and we're returning this right here, but we're not also passing in a new array. So we're going to return an anonymous function here, right? So oh my God. Yeah, you see what I mean? Oh my God. Oh my God, you see? Console log, right? All right, so now you see, this is what I wanted to point out right here. So we got anonymous function. So what we got to do now, let's do a couple of things. So first, let's do it like this. So we're expecting, all right, we're expecting an array of cats that have collars, right? Cats with collars. So we're going to do like this. Right, add collar to cats, and we're going to pass in, right, we're going to pass in the cool cats array. There we go. All right, and what we want to do here is this, and we should get our cats with collars. There we go. So basically what we have done here is that we've taken this, right? We've added an attribute called hasColor, right, to every single element in this array. And now we've gotten a new array. So we got, we get all these cats with collars. Now you see here, it works every time, right? So if the cat is fluffy, they don't get a collar, else they get a collar, right? So this, with this little cat right here, Katniss Evergreen, is fluffy and doesn't get a collar. Let's see. This one right here, Prologue Holmes, is not fluffy and he gets a collar, right? So now what I want to do, this is the cool part with currying. So what you can do with currying is like this. So we can say like this, we can do this. This is where it gets kind of awesome with currying. So what we're doing here is we're calling this function, right? And we're passing in hasColor, right? And we know that the second parameter that it's going to expect is another cats array. So first it's going to execute this parameter, and then it's going to execute this one. So it's like it's calling two different functions, and it should get the same results. Now let's run it. Boom. Yeah, see? Everything's the same. So that's the cool part with querying. I do also want to point out another thing, going back to this right here function. So this right here is a closure, right? Because it closes over, it closes over its surrounding lexical scope, right? And captures a variable even after it's already executed. So basically, this inner function captures attribute name from its outer scope. And then when you call, let's say when you want to call this right here, as we did before, we did this right here. When you want to call this, right, to create this, it remembers what was captured here inside of this closure. So that's like an excellent example of a closure if you ever want to go back to this. So like I just did, let's do it again, right? So we had cats with collars, right? And we had this right here, right? And we were passing in cool cats, right? So this right here, so this attribute that we passed in is remembered inside of the closure that was created here, right? So we're able to use it here. So this is an excellent example of a closure. So yeah, so we went over higher order functions. We went over the differences between the two, either accepting a function and gobbling it up, or accepting, I don't know, a donut or a peanut butter or jelly sandwich and then spitting out a function again. And then we went over, obviously we just went over closures. This is a perfect example of a closure. We did the map function, we did the filter function. And we also reviewed currying. Currying is excellent. So currying is good to know. You don't really need to use it all the time. You could just as well pass in attribute name and then another parameter of, the cats array in just one line without having to return one and then return another. But it does become helpful depending on the scenario. So sometimes I always like to do currying just because it just helps me think through the function. But anyways, folks, that's it for now. And subscribe if you're new here. I plan on doing these shows weekly or maybe semi-weekly or maybe more. And I don't know, we'll see how it goes, but I'm having fun doing it. And I don't know if I should turn back on the AI stuff and just have it complete the line as I write it, because that could be helpful. As you can see, now I'm caught off guard that I'm trying to demonstrate this code without actually doing that. So I don't know, we'll see how it goes. And click that like button.